I'm here to greet you. Greetings. Yay. You're in for a big treat this morning. Expect everything to be different. It's going to be great. Those of you who happen to find us on Zoom, welcome. We are the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. You are in the right place. Please, if you are in the room, turn off your cell phone. Reminds me, mine's in my purse back there. I got to get it and do it. So when I disappear, you'll know why. It looks like everybody's pretty compacted, so you don't need to move in together too much. You'll find later that some seats become empty. Leave them empty because they're going to need them again. Does that get you? I am glad you are here. We are going to go ahead toward a very special service, and we're going to turn things upside down. I'm going to give you a few announcements right now. So we can go to the announcements. I'll start by saying, don't forget pledges are due. Now, well, I think the 9th. Yes. General Assembly is coming. You can go online. It's going to be really special. I'm going to go in person this year. Woo, I'll find out about that. I'll get the mic closer to me. How's that? Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Artist reception. Well, we're going to get to see Shanti's work in the library, a reception today. You see it up here all the time. Now you get to see the breadth of her work. Amazing. The Bending of the Arc Task Force, that's our trying to get rid of racial, I can't even speak today. You all know what it is. We won, we won the distinction of Good Trouble Congregation. And this retreat that we have coming up is going to help us take a look at what do we want to do this year? Do we have the people power to do what we want to do? So we hope that lots of you will come on the 8th, 9:30 here. It'd be really helpful if you would just email me and tell me you're coming so we have enough of the things we need. And we're going to, Reverend Ani, who is hiding in Zoom someplace, and she will be appearing soon, is going to be having teas with us. You bring your tea. She'll have her tea in Virginia, and a chance to meet her on these dates. I hope that you'll come and just chat with her. It'll be like running into Kevin in the halls. We'll get to have time with her. And remember that UUCM has so much stuff on there. I keep discovering more and more things. Take a little tour one day and find out what's going on.
We, the Unitarian Universalists here in Grass Valley, want to acknowledge our commitment to being in right relationship with the Nisenan, who are the indigenous people of this land and who remain among us today. We place these black oak acorns on our altar each week as a symbol of our commitment.
I am the Reverend Janet Ani, the sabbatical minister holding the place of Reverend Kevin Tarsa for this Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains in Grass Valley. Whoever you are, whatever your skin color, whatever your gender identification or sexual preference, whatever your cultural identity, economic status, physical or mental abilities, or any other identity that has kept you from revealing your whole self, you are welcome to make a home in this time and space. In solidarity with the indigenous peoples across the United States, I acknowledge the land on which I make my home is the home of the Monacan Indian Nation, one of the few Native American groups still residing in their ancestral homeland of 10,000 years. They are recognized as one of the 7 indigenous tribes of the state of Virginia. The service this morning is a bit unusual. At a time when the news is bad and many people feel powerless, we will hear the story of 2 women who do something so simple that at first no one takes them seriously. But soon, their simple act of resistance and vulnerability has the power to transform the world. Transformation takes many forms. Before we begin the story, let us take a moment to share our joys and sorrows of the gathered community.
The next slide, please. If we can hear Corey, she could go ahead without the slide.
Okay. Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We take this time to reflect on our joys and sorrows and acknowledge the mutual support of our community. If you are with us on Zoom, please use the chat to share your joys and concerns. Those of you in the sanctuary are invited to come forward and drop a pebble in the bowl to honor your joys and sorrows. I drop the final pebbles for all the joys and sorrows held in our hearts today. Our collective compassion ripples out into the community and touches us all.
On a blustery, early summer day, when the news was bad and the sky turned yellow, a strange thing happened in the town where I live. That morning, 2 grandmothers who had never met, not even by accident, put on their summer Sunday clothes, their most comfortable shoes, their favorite sun hats, and walked to the park in the center of town. Now, that, of course, wasn't the strange part, because lots of people walk to the park, especially in summer. It's what the grandmothers did after they got there that set the whole town on its collective ear. What, you ask, could two grandmothers do that would cause such a buzz on a blustery early summer day? Well, just wait till you hear. We light our chalice this morning in anticipation of hearing what happens when we put on our Sunday best, our most comfortable shoes, and our favorite sun hats and head out to a park. The grandmothers, who had never met, not even by accident, walked past the river and past the rose garden and past the playground to the center of the big grassy area that faces the town square. And there they stood, not speaking, not looking at squirrels, not munching on coconut candy. In actual point of fact, not anything at all. Ryan Riley was the first to notice. He's the busboy at Beaver Brothers Cafe that overlooks the park. Every time he cleared the coffee cups and water glasses from the table by the window, he saw the grandmothers.
I wonder what they're doing.
He asked Willie and Irma Beans, who always sit at the table by the window.
Don't know.
Maybe they're waiting for someone.
Might be long wait.
Robin, the waitress, bustled by with a coffee pot.
Maybe they're pretending to be statues. People do that, you know.
Sue Ann Refro got up and looked out the window.
Maybe it's a Chinese meditation exercise.
Well, if it's exercise, it's the kind I could get into.
Leslie's 5-year-old daughter, Polly, joined Sue Ann at the window. For several minutes, everyone in the Beaver Brothers Cafe watched the grandmothers stand in the center of the big grassy area. No one could come up with a reasonable explanation for their behavior. No one, that is, until a very little voice said,
I know what they're doing.
Leslie looked down at her topsy-haired daughter.
You do? Yes.
Suddenly shy from all the attention.
Well, then tell us.
Takes a gulpy breath and announces quite matter-of-factly,
They're saving the world.
for exactly 2.5 seconds, no one said a word. Then they all laughed. Leslie scooped up her daughter and everyone went back to their tables, and that was that. Except it wasn't. When Ryan Riley got off work that afternoon, he cut through the park on his way home like he always does, and the grandmothers were still there. They had been standing in the middle of the big grassy area the whole day long. Ryan was puzzled, perplexed, and more than a little perturbed. The world was already askew and getting askewer every day. If grandmothers started doing unpredictably curious things, there was no telling where it might end. All at that very moment, more than anything, he needed to know why they were standing in the park. So he did the only thing he could think of. He asked. The grandmothers, whose glistening faces were flushed with the sun, smiled weary smiles, and with a hint of sadness mixed with just a hint of hope, they said, almost in unison,
"We're saving the world."
This was definitely not what Ryan wanted to hear. It made no sense. Two grandmothers standing in the park can't save the world. Everyone knows that, except maybe Polly Plunkett. But she's only 5. Ryan didn't know what to say next, and the more he didn't know what to say, the more flustered he got.
Well, you just can't.
Finally, he threw up his hands in the air and darted across the lawn toward home, his face as flushed as the grandmother's. The big television set in the family room was on when Ryan and his parents sat down to dinner. They always ate with the TV turned on to the news, and the news was always bad. Lately, it had been especially bad. The only time anyone talked during dinner, except to say, "Please pass the parsnips," was when a commercial came on. That night, Ryan could hardly wait for the commercial so he could tell his parents about the two grandmothers who stood in the park all day.
Why would they do such a thing?
They said they're saving the world.
His father laughed, shook his head, and kept on eating. But his mother stopped, a fork full of parsnips suspended in the air midway between the plate and her mouth. She stared at her son, saying nothing, even though the commercial was still on and it was okay to talk. That same evening, Willie and Irma Beans met with their weekly cribbage and dessert group. Irma told the women at her table about the grandmothers who stood in the park doing nothing.
Whatever for?
I heard they're saving the world.
She didn't mention she heard it in the coffee shop from a 5-year-old. The women at Irma's table were oddly quiet the rest of the night. Their husbands thought they were up to something. Monday. The morning dawned, gray and drippy, a day not at all befitting early summer. Ryan Riley was clearing off the window table at the cafe when he saw them, the two grandmothers standing smack in the middle of the park's big grassy area. The only difference was they were holding umbrellas instead of wearing sun hats. Well, that would have been the only difference if it weren't for the other one. This time, standing with the grandmothers were Irma Beans, Madeline Svivet, Leslie Plunkett, and his very own mother. Robin the waitress passed on her way to refill Sue Ann's coffee cup.
What you staring at, Rye?
Ryan opening his mouth to answer, but all that would come out was a sound like a cat with a hairball. Dinner was late at the Riley home, and for the first time, Ryan could remember they missed the news. The meal of leftover parsnips was interrupted by phone calls from every woman his mother knew, 17 in all. His father was not one bit pleased. The same thing happened at the Beans home. Willie Beans got so hungry waiting for his wife to get off the phone, he made himself a sardine and jelly sandwich. Leslie Plunkett was besieged by women at Melville's grocery, and Madeline Svivet's doorbell never stopped ringing. Tuesday, Ryan Riley had been at work 2 hours and had not been near the table by the window. Coffee cups and water glasses had piled up and up until there was hardly any green formica showing through. Robin knew why. In the middle of the park's big grassy area were the two grandmothers, Irma Beans, Madeline Svivet, Leslie Plunkett, Mrs. Riley, and one
My next experience was when we lived in the projects in Richmond, and we had a minister come there and start a church. His name was Reverend Heidi. And I got involved and did things for teenagers. I was in high school there. And then one day, Reverend Heidi disappeared with all the money. After I graduated from high school, I don't know why I decided to do this, but I did. I decided to read the Bible, cover to cover. I think I read it twice, and then I had a dream that said, don't forget the begots, don't forget, because I skipped all of them in the Bible. And so I think I tried a third time, but that was not successful. I joined the Congregational Church when I was in college in San Francisco, and I was working at Edie's as a waitress. I worked my way through college. But one of the most telling stories of my family's relationship with religion was when all of us were home. My brothers had all been in the service, and they were home, and I was home at the same time. And a Methodist woman came to our house, knocked on the door, and said she wanted to find out what religion we were. So my dad responded, and he said, I'm a Methodist, my mother's a Lutheran. Hey, Ralph, my brother who was home from the army, he'd been stationed in Korea, what religion are you? And my brother said, atheist. Then he went to my middle brother, who had been in the Air Force in the Middle East, and asked Frank what religion he was. And Frank said, Muslim. And then my youngest brother, who was in the Navy in Japan, he asked him what religion he was. And his girlfriend was part of the Pentecostal group, and that's what he said. I don't think I'll ever forget the look on that woman's face. I mean, she was blown away. I said I was congregational. Then when I got married, I joined the Catholic Church. And all my children are baptized as Catholics, and for various reasons, they attended a Catholic school when we lived in Sterling City. And when I got a divorce, it was a long time before I joined a church again. But when I was in graduate school, I taught myself to meditate. I didn't join a group, I just taught myself. I moved here, and not long after moving here, a bunch of people who went to graduate school with me moved here, and you know some of them. And Doug Barron said to me, when we move there, we're going to find you a job. And I went, oh no. And he did. And I came here as a counselor and a consultant to the the daycare center and the counseling center in the old Nevada school on Zion Street. And I worked there for a while. And then a friend of mine who was eventually head of mental health hired me as children's coordinator. But not long after I moved here, I met a group of Buddhists, and they convinced me to go to a Buddhist retreat on 3 days in a Boy Scout camp on the ocean, and there were no place to sit but on the ground in rickety chairs. And we ate outside, and of course you do not kill anything at Buddhist retreats, and the flies were just awful. What I finally, because I was in pain, I got to sleep in a room, but everybody was sleeping everywhere. And so, among the people who convinced me to do that, who's still a friend of mine, is John Travis, who is now a Buddhist teacher. After that, I began to sit with various groups in this area, And I every year went to a 10-day retreat at various places, from Joshua Tree to Dominican, a Catholic retreat place in Marin County. And I miss them. I miss going to them. And but I haven't been for a while. Then I began to read books about different religions, and I read most of them by Karen Armstrong. And I read about Muhammad and Muhammad's relationship with his first wife was that he never made a decision without consulting her. And the relationship with his other wives, they never cleaned for him, washed his clothes, mended his clothes, took care of his space, and he lived away from them. And they are the ones that asked him if they could wear a veil. They also include all spiritual teachings, and so they will have other people speak to them about spirituality. In the Jewish tradition, and I have a lot of friends who were Jewish, and I lived in the projects, a Jewish family took me under their wing, which was a saving for me. But anyway, their relationship with the Torah and the 10 Commandments, which I feel are a good guide to live by, and the regular study, when they regularly studied the Torah. And Christianity, my most familiar, and the thing that attracted me most to at this time, and what I read, was the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and what Christ said on the cross. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. So I still practice, have a Buddhist practice. And when I was director at the women's camp here in, at a Girl Scout, the women's camp that was at the Girl Scout camp, I also participated and led some pagan services, and that's an important piece of it for me, and I've gotten distant from it. So, and in Buddhism, the emphasis on our relationship with knowing ourself, our spirit, emphasis on compassion for self and others, and respect for all life. And I continue to meditate every day now. Now, my question to you is, where else could I go where I could practice all of what I believe and love? I cannot imagine another place that would welcome me as I've been welcomed in this congregation. So I thank you all. I think this stays up here. I think that's yours.
Back to the more conventional part of the service now. 25% of our offering today goes to Interfaith Food Ministry. This is a nonprofit most of us are familiar with from donating over the years, and many of our members volunteer. If you heard the executive director speak a couple weeks ago, you know the need is greater than ever in our community. So if you want your whole contribution to go to IMF, put it in the white envelope. And here are some other ways to give.
Your generosity remains essential to our ability to sustain the work of our community. There are several ways to contribute. You may text an amount to 833-579-0483, give via our website at uugrassvalley.org, via PayPal at paypal.me/UUCM, or mail to UUCM, 246 South Church Street, Grass Valley, California, 95945. Thank you.
Thank you for your generous contributions. We dedicate them to the ongoing work of keeping our friends and neighbors fed, nourished, and cared for. Closing words today come from Kimberly Quinn Johnson. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are not perfect, but we are perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we've been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart that new future. May we have a faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we have been waiting for. As our time together comes to an end, may we carry the message of this morning with us into our daily lives. We don't need banners or slogans. We don't need banners or slogans to find the strength within ourselves and this community to do as much good in the world as we can, for as many as we can, for as long as we can. And as we go forward, let us carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Thank you all. Thank you all. One more video, and you really need to see this.